I'm talking about the evolution and when those first bragging, that first like putting it out there. What can happen, and this, I'm just sharing this with you on my podcast journey, is that you did it, right? Like you accomplished it. It was hard, but you feel like you ripped the Band-Aid off and you did it.
Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms.
Hello, corporate badasses. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and super excited, as always, to be here with you again this week. So we're nearing the end of January already, and I cannot believe it. I mentioned this yesterday inside of my leadership table mastermind. And so part of that conversation, again, came back to goals. You know, we're nearing the end of January. Have we hit our goals? Have we not hit our goals? Is it working? Am I proud of what I've accomplished so far or not? And I think it's inevitable to feel this way, especially towards the end of January, like, have I done enough? And I was certainly feeling this way, which is why I brought it into conversation. And I think the collective conversation really turned to this idea that momentum is starting to happen, that we're starting to see traction. So whether we efforted our way through December and January or not, the traction is there, right? I'm getting more outreach. I'm getting more job interviews. My applications are getting responses. I am actually aligned with a promotion. I had another woman who is not aligned with a promotion that was promised her in March, and now she's found out. So now she can actually do something about it. So whatever might be happening for you, if you're starting to see some momentum build, or perhaps you're feeling a little guilty about like not quote unquote doing enough, I just want to use this as an opportunity to remind you that, you know, this is just the beginning, meaning quite literally, it's the beginning of the year, but it's also the beginning of the rest of your career. So if you're thinking about shifting into those higher levels of leadership, if you're currently trying to find an opportunity or get a promotion, or you're just trying to have success in those higher levels of leadership, I want you to think a little bit about that end goal. Like, what really is your 3X vision? Zoom out a little bit and say, oh my gosh, whatever's happening for me right now is just a blip. It's just a tiny little piece, a little pebble in the greater scheme of things and the direction that I'm headed. However, if you don't take that step, if you don't lean into that blip, if you don't figure out what's next for you, then you won't be making progress towards that end goal, towards that end result. So it's really important to kind of, one, cut yourself some slack, but also lean into the momentum that may or may not be happening for you right now. So if it's happening in the wrong direction, let's figure out how to get yourself out of that spiral. And if it's happening in the right direction, enjoy it. Whether you think, quote unquote, you put in the work in December or not to create or be worthy of these results, you have. You have done enough. You've done more than enough. And now is your time to reap whatever rewards might be coming to you. So congratulations. You've made it to the end of January, and it's also just the beginning of the rest of your career. So today's episode, I want to talk to you about milestones and sort of this idea of advocating for yourself and bragging, and how do you share about these big milestones or like these big, you know, results that you get for your team, or perhaps, you know, you hit a marker, you reached your goal, and you know that it's important to kind of tell other people that you reached your goal, but you don't know how to do it. And the reason that I'm talking about today's episode in particular at this moment in time is actually because last week I launched my 300th podcast episodes. 300! This is huge. And guess what happened? I recorded the podcast episode last week. I made zero mention of it being my 300th episode. My business manager Slack messages me and says, congratulations on your 300th episode. I went, oh yeah, that was my 300th episode. I should do something about that. And that's what today's podcast episode is about. Like, should we do something about that? Should we tell other people? Should we celebrate ourselves, even if in private? Like, what does advocating for ourselves, sharing about our milestones, sharing what we're proud of really, really mean? And what's truly genuinely authentic to ourselves? And also the journey, the evolution that we go through as women leaders in terms of this self-advocacy, and how in one sense it gets easier over time to do, because for me to talk about my 300th episode is just like, first of all, it completely blows my mind. And I'm also just like so proud. And of course I'm going to talk about it if I can remember. But my 50th episode, I did a whole hoopla. Like, it was very different when I celebrated my 50th episode than my 300th episode. So I want to tell you about that journey, and also the journey that I see for a lot of the women when it comes to self-advocacy. So let's go back in time. I remember when I launched my podcast back in 2019, I believe. Oh my God, no wonder I have 300 episodes. And I was very nervous about it. And I recorded those episodes. They were grand total of 10 minutes long. The entire episode was scripted. I read it verbatim, which none of those things I do now. But back in the day, that first episode took me so long to create. I think I did like a post where I was like, hey, I have a podcast now. Yay. And then I used Canva to create some pretty graphics. I probably spent a lot of time on those graphics. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I wanted to say in that LinkedIn post and actually tell people that I had a podcast. But part of me didn't want people to come to my podcast, because that would mean they actually had to listen to me, and just sort of wondering like, oh, I hope this works out. I hope I record more episodes. I hope I still have a podcast in the next few weeks if I'm sending everybody here, just all of those things that come up when you start something new. And I see this a lot for women when they get a job offer or a promotion, and they'll do a very typical job post because it's kind of easy. LinkedIn has some templates for that, and you'll say something like, hey, I got a promotion. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited for what's next. And it's a simple, easy way to advocate for yourself. And it feels incredibly uncomfortable. Maybe you never, ever, ever post on LinkedIn. This is like the one post that you did. It's because you have to, you feel like you should. Maybe it took you a long time to write it. You weren't quite certain how to write it. And I'm going back in time, like to that very first time that you shared about your career journey or your promotion, because I have a lot of women now who years later are sharing about their career journey all the time, and they don't have any of these feelings, right? So I'm talking about the evolution, and when those first, like that first self-advocacy, that first bragging, that first like putting it out there. And what can happen, and this, I'm just sharing this with you on my podcast journey, is that you did it. Like you accomplished it. It was hard. You were like, okay, done. Hopefully people come. Hopefully people comment. Oh, wow, that was nice. I heard from people I haven't heard from in years, whatever. But you feel like you ripped the Band-Aid off and you did it. Now, fast forward a year or 6 months, and you haven't talked about anything. You haven't bragged about anything. You haven't self-advocated about really anything that you're accomplishing, even one-to-one at work. You're not really talking about projects or anything that you've done. You're not scheduling 15-minute ally meetings. You're just at your desk doing your work. And this happened to me. So 50 episodes would be almost a year of having my podcast. And I have a team, and sometimes my team will post about my podcast because I tell them to, but just this idea of actually sharing what it was that I was working on, I never really got into like a really strong momentum of sharing. And that's really common because when you're first starting out, it can feel like, yes, I have something to say. Yes, I have something to celebrate, but I don't really know how to do it. And am I doing it right? But the good news is I did it anyway. I made the first post. A few people listened to my podcast. Luckily I have a team, so even more people started listening to my podcast. I got more and more comfortable with sharing about the work that I'm doing. I also started to see big results, right? So every single day, if I'm talking to a client and they're like, oh my God, Stacy, you're not going to believe what happened when I did or said exactly what you told me to say. And I'm like, yeah, of course, this process works. And so then again and again and again, we start getting results, bigger and bigger and better things happen, and so on, right? So it's really important to recognize that, you're getting out there, you're getting like your leadership matters, the conferences that you're speaking at. It's important that people hear about this, right? And it feels good to you. And so then you're like, you share a little bit more and more and more. So that is very normal, very common. And then my 50th episode came around, and it was kind of similar to my first episode. I had a big contest. I had to force myself to share with other people. And I put it out there, and I was like, all right, everybody listen to my podcast. And then slowly. So now if my first episode was in 2019, now 6 years later, oh my God, we're in 2026 years later, episode 300, what's happening for me is episode 300 was 150% inevitable. This is very different than where I was in the beginning. So I was efforting to do the work that I was doing. It required effort. It required work. So when you got your first promotion, when you landed a higher level executive title, there was a lot of efforting probably involved. Like you might have been working with me directly. You had to think about the strategy. You had to figure out what to say and when to say it. But in the evolution of women's leadership, our voice becomes less effortful, right? It's just easy. It's easy to share. It's easy to talk about ourselves, so much so that by the time we make it to our 3X vision, or we finally get that C-suite title, or we land that board seat, or I have another client that she had a goal for a long time to give 5 talks per year at different organizations and conferences, and now she's giving 10 talks per year. And it's like, it's effortless. So now her ability to share about the things that she's working on is easier, right? So much so that we forget about it. We forget to tell people. We do a 300th episode and we go, oh my God, 300 episodes. This is a really big deal. Oh my God, I'm in the C-suite. I remember the day when that was just a dream, right? Like I thought, oh, someday I might actually have a voice at the table. Someday I might be in the management team. And now I'm there and I forget to tell anybody about it. This is actually a good thing, right? This is a different kind of self-advocacy. This is recognizing that you just are, right? You just are that expert. You just are that executive leader. And chances are really good that you're listening to this and you fall somewhere in the middle, right? Where, it definitely doesn't feel effortless what you're doing, but yet you do feel more confident in sharing and so on, and talking about your accomplishments and owning it and asking for a raise and making sure that you're actually set up for your next promotion. Or let's say you get laid off and you're like, next, all right, I've already got all of these opportunities lined up. This is what's happening for the women inside of the leadership table, by the way, is that even if they're through the ebbs and flows of their career, they know what they need to accomplish and they know what they need to do next. So my 300th episode came and went. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I should do an episode about my 300th episode, right? And so I do it, right? I'm having this conversation with you right now. Same thing can happen where, in the beginning, you were like, I got this promotion. Congratulations to me. And then, fast forward 5 years, and now you're just talking about being in the C-suite. You're just sharing with people. Maybe you're starting your own podcast. Maybe you're willing to go up to your boss and own some of the wins that you've had, right? Like, Here's a good example of a win that people don't often self-advocate about is dealing with a difficult employee, right? So if you manage a team of 50 plus people and you have one person that's just a big pain in your butt, the last thing you want to do is talk to your boss about this big pain in the butt employee. But fast forward 3 months and you're able to turn around his job performance and get him to do the work that he was supposed to be doing all along, so much so that now he's actually going above and beyond. You're available to just like say, hey, I just wanted to check in about Jim. Like things are going amazingly well. Now the team is actually coming to him for answers instead of him being the problem person in all of our meetings. And you might even be willing to share with your boss about your process and how you got there and how you accomplished this. And so this is the idea of self-advocacy over time, is that it does become easier. But how do we get there? If you're still in that beginning phase where you're like, I don't even want to post about my job offer or my promotion on LinkedIn, and this feels really hard, that's like quite literally the answer. You have to take that first step. You have to. I shouldn't say have to because that feels a lot like I'm telling you what to do, but I encourage you to take that first step. If you want to become that person that is very effortless in sharing about their thought leadership and sharing about some of their accomplishments, it doesn't sound like bragging. It doesn't sound like their ego. It just sounds like they love what they do. If you want to become that person who has 300 podcast episodes and forgets that she has them and then has to record an episode about at episode 301, where she talks about her previous episode, if you want to become that person, then you start. That's it. You take that first step. You do that first post. You send that direct message. You schedule a meeting with your boss and you talk about something that you're proud of. You share about that difficult employee. You share about something that you accomplished. You share that the boss's boss actually gave you a compliment, and you actually tell your boss that that happened. And yeah, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. It's going to feel very effortful. But the thing is that unless we start this process, unless you start to rip off that Band-Aid, unless you start to say, hey, I'm willing to talk about what matters to me in leadership and actually share that I'm a vice frickin' president at this organization with anybody, like whether it's at church or scouts or in, whatever that might be for you at school, at the pickup line, who knows? Share with anybody that your leadership matters and what you're working on. It starts with starting, right? And that might look like a lot smaller than you wish. It might look a little bit like I should be doing more. All I did is one post or whatever, or all I did is tell one person and who cares, right? But that is not true. It matters to share about your accomplishments. It matters to start. It matters if you ever want to be that effortless person that just is at the C-suite where they say, like talk about, your friends and family where they say, my cousin is an executive. I don't know exactly what she does, but she's an executive. That's huge, right? We want other people to be proud of us. It matters. Your leadership matters. You did so much work to get exactly where you are today. And other people deserve to celebrate that, to know about that. And then now you can inspire other people to take that first step, to begin to elevate their own leadership, to begin to share about their own process. And the next thing you know, you're going to have a goal of giving one talk in 2026, and that turns into 10. The next thing you know, you're going to be referred to as a thought leader or a super expert in your industry. You're going to be given promotions without asking. You're going to be given job opportunities while you're sitting in your dream job. These are actual things that are happening for my clients on a regular basis, right? And I forget to share with you those wins. I forget too. But the point is that I've arrived. I want to own that I've arrived. I have accomplished. I no longer have to prove myself or say, hey, listen to me. I don't have to shout anymore. I just am. I am a woman with over 300 podcast episodes and something to frickin' say about what it takes for you to get promoted into higher level executive leadership. I am a woman who has accomplished great things. My daughter and my son might not be able to describe what the heck I do besides Zoom calls, but they know that it's important. They know that my work matters, and they know that every single day that I'm going to work, that I have something to say. And that matters. And that's available to you. That's available to you right now. Figure out what that first step is. I encourage you to share it. If you share it on LinkedIn, please tag me. Please tag this podcast. Say, thank you, Women Changing Leadership, for inspiration. Thank you, Stacy Mayer, for showing me what it means to care about my leadership and actually share that with other people. Please do, because I want your voice out there and I want to celebrate you for having that voice. Right? I know it's difficult. I know it can feel really hard and very scary at first, but I promise you it's just the first step. And before you know it, you will have arrived as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for listening today and for the past 6+ years. I am so grateful for your leadership, for your continued commitment to changing the leadership table. And I can't wait to do this again next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Women Changing Leadership with Stacy Mayer. If you enjoyed this episode, you are absolutely going to love and benefit from the work that we're doing inside of the Women's Leadership Accelerator. This month-to-month membership program is unlike anything else in the market. We are single-handedly flipping the unemployment rates on their head. It is the only place on the internet where you can actually get yourself not only a job offer, but one that has a higher salary, a higher title, and more recognition and influence than you ever could have imagined in your career. Inside the Women's Leadership Accelerator, we are getting women promoted. We are getting them multiple higher level job offers. And I want that to happen for you. Join us in this one-of-a-kind program. You're going to get coaching directly from me, my executive mentors who are also hiring managers who are doing the work, who have worked with me personally for the past 3 to 5 years. We are here inside of this accelerator program to work with you personally to begin to elevate your leadership to that next level. This is exactly what you have been looking for, and I am here to deliver it to you. Best thing, it's month to month. So you can come in, join us, get access to all of my training materials, my weekly live interactive calls, and you can begin to bring your friends into this community. It is the most corporate badass community on the market. I can't wait to see you in there. Go to authenticallypowerfulwomen.com. We are changing the face of the leadership table, one promotion at a time. I can't wait to see you there.